And we are back. A lot has happened since my first initial review of the DanDaDan's Turbo Granny arc. For starters, different lighting, let me know if it looks good. Well, the most important thing that's happened is the official anime adaptation of DanDaDan has officially dropped. The entirety of the Turbo Granny arc has been covered already, and what were my thoughts? Phenomenal. I watched the first 3 episodes in theaters, I copped this poster which is now hanging in the hallway of my apartment, and like everyone else who's been watching the anime, I can't get the opening out of my head. I think it's gonna be opening of the year, there's no question about it. I literally annoy my wife with it as much as possible, and my wife is now officially a DanDaDan fan as well, so we won. The Turbo Granny arc told a tight and concise story, which importantly introduced us to our 2 primary protagonists of this wild story, as well as our 2 favorite grandmas of all time. But we are done with everything Turbo Granny. Kind of. So why waste any more time? I'm here to talk about what we have next in this series. Let's talk everything about the one and only Acrobatic Silky arc. It's crazy to even consider this an arc. Is really short, like it's only a couple chapters, just like the first arc, but I'm really breaking down DanDaDan. Like, I don't care how long the arc is, I want to talk about everything. The arc doesn't even properly start until chapter 9 of the manga and episode 5 of the anime, where we just get this insanely cute snapshot of Okarun and Momo starting their day. Bro is getting absolutely abused for no reason at all, but I just love that he's willing to ignore all of it just because he has Momo now. It's so cute. I also don't really know what happened to Momo's black friend here, who I still don't know the name of, by the way. They still never have said the name out loud at this point of the story. I had to go to the DanDaDan wiki just to find out their names are Kei-san and Miko? Who would have known? Anyways, Kei-san, whatever. What happened to her face tattoos? Like, she had a whole bunch of these in the first chapter, she's just normal now. What was that? They don't even address that. Same thing happened in the anime too. What was that? Our protagonists spend so much of this chapter just missing each other all throughout school until suddenly, as soon as they're about to give up, bam. They kiss? Bro, they kiss. Alright, Ugwis? What the I just didn't expect this to happen so early in the series, you know? Like, this is very early. We're not even 10 chapters deep yet. Like, we are literally only 2nd volume in this rom-com of a series. And they kissed. Now, it wasn't like an actual kiss. They weren't like making out, you know, it wasn't intentional. So an intentional kiss will happen eventually down the line, I assume, but we still get a kiss. Their lips touched. And that's, we won. I've never liked this for any other series. And of course, Momo's friends had to make it all hot. The highlight though, of course, is Okarun going for a piss and noticing he has no balls. You see, this panel right here is just iconic. This is only chapter 9, yet I feel like every single chapter so far has had a page or just a moment that just stands out. There's no forgettable chapter yet. Every single chapter so far is just insane, crazy, amazing artwork, and just the most funny moments. And how this is the moment. This is the panel that you share on Twitter, that you just repost everywhere, because this is DanDaDan. This is the humor of DanDaDan. This is the situation of DanDaDan. This is the premise of DanDaDan. This is DanDaDan. This is what we are reading. This is iconic. This is a legendary panel. Yoko Nobutatsu has been a genius in not only capturing horror in this story, but so much humor as well, so props to him. We start chapter 10 with everyone surrounding Momo in an attempt to figure out what the hell happened with this kiss she just had, and Okarun rushes to Momo to try to talk to her about the missing balls. What breaks my heart about this scene though is Okarun, his statement of, "Are you that embarrassed to be friends with me?" That's a gut punch right there. Nearly made me tear up too. You can really tell that Momo feels like a dick for that one. My boy is quick to bounce back though, as he bumps into this pink-haired mean girl named Ira. She's here touching and feeling up Okarun everywhere. Momo peeps this, and then overhears all the horrible things Ira has in mind about her true intentions, prompting Momo to drop a wash basin on her head. Glomp Okarun give Ira the old death stare, and this death stare, oh man, it sends shivers down my spine. Both the anime and the manga just sold this moment perfectly, and I'm sure we'll never, ever see this pink-haired woman ever again. Momo's out here dying of laughter about the big Okarun secret, and bro, for how long she was laughing in the anime, I was audibly laughing out loud. Audibly. This was so funny. I guess is that my only commentary of DanDaDan? Just how funny it is? I mean, it's a legit. There's so many funny moments. And Momo just cracking up, rolling on the floor. Like, these back-to-back chapters are just such a delight when it comes to humor. I know it's shonen, and maybe I'm glazing Tatsu here, but I seriously haven't read a manga this funny, like, ever. Dragon Ball and One Piece had their funny moments for sure, but this is just swinging off the bat. Also, quick tangent, but if you know any really funny manga out there, please let me know. Recommend it to me. I'm down to just read some really funny manga. Maybe DanDaDan just is really bad in humor compared to some of the greatest out there, but so far, DanDaDan is just... the rom-com element, it's really leaning heavily into that comedy element, like, damn. And this exchange is just gold right here. When my rod came back, more like your pencil. Yo, these jokes, they don't stop. They don't stop. They're all perfect. We end the chapter with this quick reveal that somehow there's still something inside of Okarun. Chapter 11 is all about exercising Turbo Granny from within Okarun and pushing into one of those cat dolls they usually see at a Chinese restaurant. The fan service in this chapter is cranked up to 11 when it comes to Seiko. Like, Tatsu is doing her all the favors right now. And so hey, if you're a Granny fan, yo, you're eating it up right now. I guess this is as good of a time as any to bring up Turbo Granny's anime portrayal. I've been watching the anime in both sub and dub, and I got to say, getting Rita Repulsa's voice actress Barbara Goodson to come in and voice Turbo Granny is honestly one of the greatest castings I've ever just seen in an anime. Like, that is a match made in heaven. That's perfect casting. Goodson kills this role. She brings this layer of villainy to the character that is just so fitting, to be honest. And with this chapter, Turbo Granny has not only officially joined our main cast of characters, but I'm such a big fan of how Momo can't even bring herself to hate Turbo Granny. She spent this entire time protecting spirits of girls who were unfortunately victim to terrible harassment while they were alive. There's something here to the chapter that I think is really worth exploring. Turbo Granny, she's not really completely evil. She isn't completely evil. She will do whatever it takes to protect other women. I mean, we literally saw that in chapter 1 of this series. When she took over Okarun, she went through whatever cell phone teleporty thing, whatever it was, the circuitry of the cell phone? Maybe. But that wasn't completely Okarun who did that. That was Turbo Granny's powers. She ran through the circuitry of the phone to protect Momo. From chapter 1, we have seen Turbo Granny protecting women. She protected Momo from those Serpoians, right? Like, that's just who Turbo Granny is. She's a protector of women. Chances are when she saw Okarun walking down into the tunnel in chapter 1, she thought that Okarun was trying to do something stupid, do something harmful or abusive to women. And so that's why she did what she did. Maybe Turbo Granny is like this because something happened to her or someone that she really cares about. I don't know. I really wish that gets explored one day down the line, but for now, I'm just happy that Turbo Granny is a main character and she's here to stay. That's awesome. Even if it's as one of those Chinese restaurant cats. On to chapter 12. Okarun's balls look like small round gold balls for some reason, and the energy within draws to spirits and yokai for some reason. Some of the aspects of the manga are just really funny. And this moment in particular, was portrayed as so serious in the anime, and it made my wife audibly laugh out loud because the juxtaposition of it, we're talking about someone's testicles so seriously. There's this moment where Okarun is getting picked on by some dudes to introduce them to Momo, and that's somehow the moment when he realizes she's actually cute. Like, bro, that was really obvious from the jump. Like, how are you now realizing that Momo, the person you've been hanging out with this entire time, is, like, attractive? You're late, bro. You are a high school boy, and ain't no way you didn't catch some feelings seeing Momo consistently in her underwear and even kissed her accidentally, but you don't catch feelings? Nah, he is truly approaching Momo with the most honest of intentions. Not that we didn't know that already, but even more reason to love Okarun. And if you want another reason to love Okarun fucking snaps right here in this scene as the guy mentions how easy Momo is. Dude transforms and defends her and is ready to murder for her, bro. I love Okarun so much. I love him. Funny enough, this is also the moment where my wife, when she watched this in the anime, she was also like, yeah, I'm gonna keep watching this. I love this guy. Even if Okarun is a massive nerd, we know without a shadow of a doubt that he's not a bitch. Okarun tries to tell Momo not that long after that apparently Turbo Granny went with them to school and is hiding out in his bag, but dude is just lost in Momo's beauty now. Momo's friends tell her what happened with Okarun going off and the dude's bad-mouthing her, and she's just so shook and impressed. I'll say this to the day I die, I love this couple. I love their relationship with all of my heart and soul, and oh, pink-haired girl's back. Who would ever thought that she would be relevant? Well, her name is Ira, and I'm honestly not that big of a fan at the fact that she looks exactly like Momo, but with pink hair. It's kind of reminiscent of the One Piece problem with female character designs. I honestly think it's the eyebrows. Tetsuya has a really distinct style of drawing eyebrows for some reason, and when every woman has a similar head shape, eyebrows, and facial features with the only difference being hair color, that's gonna be a problem. I mean, even with Psycho, yeah, she's hot, but she doesn't really look like a grandma. She looks like a 20s, 30s, if anything. Here's hoping this won't be a consistent problem down the road when it comes to female character design. Ara was the one who started the rumor about Momo being easy and a slut and all that, so I instantly hate her. But wait, she saw Momo's spirit hands. And she has a golden ball? Yo. Chapter 13 reveals that the train fight between Momo and Turbo Granny from chapters 7 and 8 was actually how Ira even managed to get Okarun's ball, as she was at the park next to the train station, which was the same park Okarun and Momo tried to investigate in the beginning of the last chapter. I love this little connective tissue. Ira is clearly planning something evil with a cross and a Bible that her friends got her, and with her calling Momo the devil, it's clear that this is all related. But there's this really scary moment as she's looking at an empty soccer field and asks, what is that? This moment made me feel so uneasy. I remember when I got to this moment in the manga, and I saw this panel, I just brought it up real close to my face, like, what is she looking at? What does she see? I don't see anything. And that also is what made me even more freaked out. You know? That moment in which I realized that she's seeing something that no one else can see is what made it even more terrifying. And the crazy thing is, Turbo Granny also sees the exact same thing Ira does. Bro, do I need to re-examine this panel or something? What are they seeing? What are they seeing that I'm not? Something I really hate though is that the anime kind of spoiled the surprise. Like, I really wish the anime just lingered on this and really just emphasized how creepy this is. Maybe it's just me that thought this was creepy. I don't know. Ira with her two friends, who I imagine aren't really all that important since they aren't named, brings up a Bible and a cross, to which is mentioned multiple times that it smells bad, but I'll get back to that. Ira also mentions the woman in the red dress is getting closer, but the field is completely empty. Yeah, this is just freaking me out. Ira calls Momo to talk alone in the warehouse just for Momo to get jumped and tied down, and Ira attempts to exercise her with the cross from before, which, again, it's mentioned it smells bad in the English translation. In the middle of all of this is one of the funniest moments so far. Ira busts out the ball and Momo says, "That's just Okarun's testicle." And in this insane spread, the red dress woman shows up and holy shit, she was dying to get her hands on Ira. She is brolic as fuck. We see in chapter 14 that this red dress woman, called the Acrobatic Silky, thinks she's Ira's mother. Much of the beginning of this chapter is just fighting, but there's a moment where Turbo Granny steals Ira's phone. She has to Google who the Acrobatic Silky is. Same. She's a low-ranking rookie, which is just absolutely insane to consider when we see how strong Silky is. Also, I'm curious if there really is like a ranking system in this world. In Hunter x Hunter, one of the craziest things to me was revealing the Chimera Ants were only a B-level threat. I don't know, something about ranking villains really does something to my brain. The gang is facing Acrobatic Silky, and she's actually a weakling when we compare her to what future threats the characters will likely go against in the future. Now is just as good a time as any to really focus in on the Acrobatic Silky herself. She's a force to be reckoned with. She eats Ira, she goes off on Momo, and she's just strong as fuck. The imagery surrounding her, I mean, come on. Her face, it's terrifying. And what she does with her hair is just sick. But initially I thought there has to be a similarity here with the Hunter x Hunter character of Palm. As Palm's net ability, Black Widow, we see her wrapped up around with her hair to form a sort of dress with this wide brim hat. Now the dress isn't red like Silky's, but the fact that they both utilize hair as a weapon along with a very similar fashion sense made me think there has to be a connection here, specifically because, well, I've never really heard of the legend of the Acrobatic Silky before. In the previous arc, I at least knew what aliens and spirits are. I mean, duh, who doesn't know that? Who doesn't know of aliens and spirits? But going off of Mob Psycho 100, I was already familiar with Turbo Granny, having been a real urban legend in Japan. And going off of future arcs, spoiler alert, I already know that things like the Loch Ness Monster is a real urban myth. But what the hell is Acrobatic Silky? I've never heard of it before. Time to break it down. I had to Google like Turbo Granny. Yeah, so the Acrobatic Silky is a real urban legend in Japan as well. The story goes that a group of friends encounter a strange woman wearing a red dress and long black hair who introduces herself as Sarah. Sarah seems to be lost or just in need of help, which is why she approaches a group of friends and then proceeds to perform a very impressive acrobatic act. After her performance, Sarah will suddenly vanish. It's said that all of those who witness Sarah's acrobatic performances are immediately cursed and shall face death. The story doesn't even end there though. I had to head over to the DanDaDan wiki to find out that this specific rendition of Acrobatic Silky also had some inspiration from the legend of Miss 8 Feet Tall, a yokai that takes the form of an impossibly tall woman with long black hair, and considering how tall Acrobatic Silky is and what her hair looks like, I can see the comparison. Miss 8 Feet Tall also has a habit of preying on children, and with how Acrobatic Silky kept appearing to Ira from afar, yeah, that makes sense, the connection here. After stalking the child for a couple of days or months, she catches her victims and takes the child away from its family. The wiki also notes that Silky was inspired by the slit-mouthed woman as well, an urban legend of a woman who was mutilated at some point in her life, leaving her with a mouth that was slit from ear to ear, which is what we see in this version of Acrobatic Silky as having. Apparently the slit-mouthed woman also appeared in Mob Psycho 100, but for the life of me, I really don't remember this, even if the character appeared in episode 2. It's insane how many different means Tatsu took in consideration when designing this version of Acrobatic Silky, and to be honest, I see this version of Acrobatic Silky as having the most amount of similarities with Miss 8 Feet Tall more than anything else, but hey, at the end of the day, this villain is still acrobatic to her core. And we see a lot of those acrobatic performances in display here in DanDaDan. But it's still pretty clear that Tatsu decided to take quite a number of creative liberties when it comes to the character, but I'll get back to that in just a second. Silky eats all of our protagonists, first Okarun, then Ira, and finally Momo. But upon eating Momo, she actually combusts into flames as the cross from earlier is actually revealed to be a lighter. And I think that's stupid. Like, sure, this isn't the craziest thing ever, but this felt like a little bit too convenient. Especially as the only clues we have to this cross being weird is the multiple mentions from earlier that it smells bad. But how can one immediately assume that if something smells bad, it must mean it's a lighter? I'm not sure if the original Japanese makes mention of it smelling like oil, but that's something I'm actually glad the anime brought up. As when the lighter is originally shown in the anime, you can easily see the split where you take the top off. Thus, you already know that this shouldn't be an ordinary cross. Plus, instead of just saying it smells weird, they say outright that it smells like oil. I know this seems like a dumb thing to nitpick, but without that setup, which the manga poorly executed on, this just seems like something that comes out of nowhere. But whatever, Volume 2 comes to a close with a really successful escape from Silky's insides, as Momo, Okarun, and I guess Ira and Cerebro are all ready to face down Silky. Tatsu is such a master at this scary Junji Ito type artwork when combining it with a story that feels scary as fuck when you think about it. Silky is going crazy on forcing Ira to call her mommy, which is wild, and saying she'll even devour her. Oh my gosh. Maybe it's just me, but Silky's really coming across here as a much more menacing villain when compared to Tomo Granny in the initial chapters of the manga. Quick tangent here, but Tatsu has a tendency to draw these characters with insanely short skirts. It's just an odd choice to me to consistently keep drawing these characters with short skirts. Even Ira suffers from this, as we see when she initially picked up Okarun's ball, but whatever. We get this moment where Okarun isn't exactly confident in his ability to fight, which, I mean, makes sense since he's never had to fight before, but damn, this goddamn spread of Okarun destroying Silky is everything. When Okurun gets serious, man, there is nothing better. But while Silky appears to finally be dead, we also end this chapter seeing Aira is dead as well. Tobugane makes it clear that being eaten from a yokai isn't exactly something that a regular person can survive from. Momo and Okurun at this point are heavily in tune spiritually, but Momo's golden ball just isn't enough, I suppose. Even with that in mind, Momo and Okurun do everything they can to try and bring her back, to which I find Momo's methods here to be such a really cool use of her powers as she tries to massage Aira's heart. Silky isn't dead though. We see she survived her battle against Momo and Okurun, she just doesn't have her hair anymore, due to Momo's tangling of it earlier. She's here willing to give up her aura in order to bring back Aira, ripping herself apart too in order to do so. Yeah, this is terrifying, but it is interesting. Granny mentions that to living things, an aura is akin to a battery. I'm sure this idea will get brought up again in the future, no doubt. Okurun is just locked the fuck in though in this moment. And Momo transfers auras between Silky and Aira, but this is when things really get interesting. We are now at Silky's backstory, which is 100% the best part of this arc. I mentioned earlier that Tatsu definitely decided to approach writing Acrobatic Silky with a number of creative liberties, and this is it at full display. The original urban legend really gave nothing more to the story of Silky. You just see her randomly, she does something acrobatic like a dance or climb a tree, and boom, you're cursed forever, that's it. But here, well, it's just so much more tragic. A prostitute trying to make ends meet as a single mother to her daughter, working as a janitor, as a clerk, and sleeping around at night, all in order to make ends meet, dancing ballet with the daughter to pass time and saving her last bit of cash to buy a dress for her daughter. I can only assume people she was indebted to come crashing into her home, pinning her down and taking her daughter and last remaining cash, all while she tried her best to run after the individuals who kidnapped her daughter. She just couldn't keep up with all the rain. And in her last moments, she dances one last time with a beautifully drawn spread. She jumps off the rooftop. This backstory really kills me. I burst into tears. There's no words here. Not a single word is said, but it's emotionally moving all the same. And that's not even me mentioning how the anime moved forward in adapting this scene. The anime really focused even more on Silky's relationship with her daughter, utilizing this extremely touching piano piece in the background that broke me into a million pieces. The episode that adapted Silky's backstory is truly one of the best anime episodes I've ever seen. I cried every single time I watched episode 7, which, yeah, it was multiple times. I kinda glossed over Acrobatic Silky's obsession with Aira this entire time, but I wanted to wait till we break down her backstory to talk further. Stories about single mothers really get to me, considering I myself was raised by a single mother. Seeing the lengths a single mother would go through in order to just make her child happy, and I can't even begin to fathom the amount of heartbreak Silky experienced with seeing her daughter being taken from her. I really truly do wonder if we will ever see this daughter ever again in the story of DanDaDan. I'm really just dying to know if she'll be relevant ever again. That's probably just me also hoping out hope that she's still alive after having been kidnapped. One can only hope. I mentioned earlier that out of the 3 primary urban legends that were considered in the design and development of Acrobatic Silky, it was clear to me that Miss 8 Feet Tall was what Silky bore the most resemblance to, and I hope you can see why. Acrobatic Silky is obsessed with preying upon and kidnapping Aira, but only because her own child was kidnapped as well. And now let's switch it up and talk a little bit more about Aira. She's obsessed with her beauty. Throughout this arc, we keep seeing her bring it up again and again and again. I truly just thought that she was going to be a whatever character after her first appearance when she flirted with Okurun, especially when considering Tatsu was writing her as a bully with not much else going on. She was shallow through and through, and yet when Tatsu brought her back and made it apparent that she was going to be a primary character in the arc, that's when I really took notice. In this exchange of backstories, we soon find out Aira's own mother had passed away at a very early age. Whether or not growing up without a mother played into her bullying ways, we don't know, although that really wouldn't be shocking. But still, she ran into a strange woman in red when she was just a little girl and accidentally assumed it must be her actual mother. Now, of course, we found out this strange woman was actually Acrobatic Silky, who turned into a yokai after her suicide. She's been looking for something in the afterlife, which we obviously know that something is her daughter. But now that a young girl assumes she was her mother, Silky assumes she must be the mother of this child, and as such has spent the next decade or so stalking Aira, just like the urban legend of Miss 8 Feet Tall. Still weird though, When we see her, she still looks human and beautiful, but I guess at some point, she just became taller and stronger and had longer hair. And the anime was immediately after this moment, actually. And she slit her mouth wide open, I guess, with a pair of scissors, but whatever, that's neither here nor there. However, that does explain why Turbo calls her a rookie, considering Silky has only been a yokai for about a decade. Funny enough, the actual legend of Miss 8 Feet Tall is also a rather recent one as well, having only been circulating starting in 2008 or so. Anyways, I don't know how to feel still about Ira. Her backstory is short, yeah, but it says a lot about her. But there's still so much more to see from her. She isn't likable just yet. Her personality is still quite shallow, and her reasoning for sticking around our main cast of characters has yet to be seen. Regardless, we cut back to the present. Momo is crying as she just saw the story of Acrobatic Silky after having touched her aura, and Okarun's out here still ready to throw hands. Ira gets up and now has returned to life, but Silky begins to evaporate and become erased. Granny mentions you can't ever achieve nirvana if you have lingering regrets, and it was clear as day that Acrobatic Silky still remained on this earth because of her attachment to her daughter. And as she disappears, she says, "I wanted to buy you lovelier clothes," and oh my god. Damn. You would have had a happy life if I hadn't been your mother. Ira hugging Silky is so needed, and she calls her Mom. We finished this arc with these two back-to-back beautiful spreads. Oh my gosh. And that right there is the Acrobatic Silky arc. What an insanely beautiful and amazing follow-up to the Turbo Granny arc. In hindsight, the Turbo Granny arc feels much more like a taste of what the overall series is supposed to be. If you don't like the Turbo Granny arc, chances are you won't like everything else that follows. This arc, however, served as an opportunity not only for Tatsu to keep exploring his horror elements, as there still were some pretty insane panels here. Like, these eyes, they're just, what the hell, man? And even if there was nothing out there, these panels of just the empty field really get to me. Regardless, this arc was also a chance for Tatsu to dig deeper into pulling the emotional heartstrings. I only feel a bit of that when Psycho hugged Momo from the back as she left to take on Granny, but this, the backstory, oh my god. This is the emotional Mount Everest of DanDaDan to me. I really don't know if we will ever reach this height again. If there was any weakness in this arc for me, it honestly was Ira and that cross. Now, spoiler alert, I like her a lot more now considering where I'm at in the story, but funny enough, I think her debut arc in the series is unfortunately her weakest outing as a character. But Acrobatic Silky as a villain more than makes up for it, man. What a phenomenal follow-up to the introductory arc, and I can only hope we keep on going from here. Thanks for breaking down this Acrobatic Silky arc with me, and join me next time when we get into the one and only Serpo arc.